We'll go ahead and get started. First off, thank you everybody for joining today. Wherever you are in the world, I truly appreciate it. And sorry about the delay. There's been few AT&T outages, I guess, in my area, and I was a victim of it. But everything is good, up and running. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for to APIsec for hosting me today. It's definitely just a tremendous honor, and especially this topic of API security and just cybersecurity behind all of this, but especially in the autonomous vehicle sector. There's so much that is being discussed, throughout the industry, and this is where it really comes into place of what we can do to ensure that we are doing a protective job in really protecting information, protecting vehicles, as well as just overall streamlining the process of where things are. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me. So I'm gonna go to the next slide here. Just to introduce myself real quick, I know Dan did an introduction since I was not here, but again, thank you so much, Dan. So my name is Hemanth Tadepalli. I'm currently the Cybersecurity Compliance Engineer at MayMobility. Before coming to MayMobility, I've had a number of years of cybersecurity and IT experience. Started off my career at Alex Partners, the big management consulting firm out of the Northeast. From there, I went ahead and worked at a big cybersecurity firm, also known as Mandiant, which was later on acquired by Google. So I was just brought on as the acquisition was being closed. So interview process and just like work was a bit different, but had a tremendous experience working there. From there, I actually worked at a startup called Sensai. It's a Michigan-based cybersecurity startup. So I am from Michigan, a Detroit native, and so Sensai is actually owned by former Governor Rick Snyder, who did a lot of cybersecurity for small and medium-sized companies. So I've assisted him with different projects. My bachelor's degree is in computer science with my concentration in cybersecurity. And I also had minors in innovation entrepreneurship and was a law minor. From there, my master's in cybersecurity from the University of California, Berkeley. I do a lot of vulnerability research on the side, so I have a lot of interest in the API area, especially with the vehicle side. But a lot of my niche areas are cyber policy and law, security compliance, API security, and automotive security as well. Another hat I do put on, I do also want to mention here because it's really important, especially since this is an election year, is I actually hold office in my city for the city of Troy. So what I do, I guess, from a security standpoint, before coming to that position, was I was actually appointed by the Secretary of State to serve on her election task force and making sure that we are having fair elections, combating the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Now, where do APIs fit into that? There's actually a lot, especially when it comes down to voting machines. But anyways, we are here to talk about automotive. So let's definitely go in. But I do want to take just a few minutes here to just talk about MayMobility because it really relates to my presentation on where does API security fall into place with autonomous vehicles. So at May, we are basically always starting with the why. So, May Mobility was really founded to solve a unique challenge, facing the world today that we see. Because there's such an imbalance to access mobility, within the backdrop of different cities being congested and towns. And so the result of this is this company was basically founded and uses technology to create a better, cleaner, and even more accessible way to get around. There's been a lot of more population growth and an increased desire amongst many people to live basically in urban environments, and this is really causing more congestion. And so a lot of this congestion and poor infrastructure is making transportation more dangerous, and I guess our commutes to work and to wherever it may be is a lot more difficult, and our environment being more polluted. And so this is really a situation, but this can be solved with, I guess, the right people, purpose, and the technology that's being put in place. So today we operate autonomous vehicles in several cities, and we're really demonstrating that we are focused on more than just research. We are focused on impact. And so our deployments in these cities have allowed us to really learn about riders' needs and about what works in autonomous technology today, in order to continue to evolve the mobility for tomorrow. So to move on here, um, I think our mission really comes into place here because this really relates to how May Mobility was founded to address mobility issues around the world, and that is where autonomous vehicles come into place. Go to the next slide here. Again, more of our vision. We are transforming cities through autonomous technology. To create a safer, green, and more accessible world. We also do comply and help. Individuals with wheelchairs. We are wheelchair accessible because we want to make sure people that don't have the specific, things that they have in front of each other to really help one another. So this is where we're helping individuals that have wheelchairs too. Uh, to go more in depth here, with cybersecurity, you know, in 2023, there were 295 reported automotive cybersecurity incidents. And so within the past decade of automotive cybersecurity, there was really a noticeable increase in cyber incidents and attacks targeting OEMs and the industry as a whole. And so, despite the significant investments by OEMs to really enhance cybersecurity, there's been new attack vectors and methods that have been continued to emerge. So, just looking at the trend itself, upstream, which we've heard about today, Upstream's research actually indicates a significant rise in publicly disclosed incidents from 2019 to 2023. And there were more than 50% of an increase, and that was totaling 295 reported incidents in 2023 just alone. Now, the nature of attacks, when we take a look into this, notably 95% of the attacks in 2023 were conducted remotely, and that were actually more API focused. And from an automotive standpoint, that also addresses Fleet API, which I'll be getting into more later in this presentation. And so this actually indicated a huge shift towards the cyber attacks that don't require physical access to vehicles. Now, 64% of these attacks were actually attributed to malicious actors. These were highlighting the growing sophistication of cyber threats in the automotive industry. Now, even more statistically, the yearly cost of cybercrime, just from a automotive sector perspective, um, in 2025 is projected to reach $10.5 trillion, right? And this is really talking from a financial perspective of the impact how cybersecurity has from an API standpoint. We've also seen that 86% of business leaders believe that global geopolitical instability affects API security when it comes down to the automotive sector. And the levels of disruption from cyber attacks has increased by 200% from 2017 to 2022. Indicating a growing threat landscape and the need for proactive cybersecurity strategies. So to continue on here, we talk about this a little more, and as the automotive industry becomes more connected and digitalized, uh, there's been more openness to new revenue streams. The attack vectors are evolving beyond traditional stakeholders. There's been vehicle subscription services that use APIs today, because subscription services are, more of an in-car feature requiring drivers to go ahead and share personally identifiable information, PII, opening the door to identity and authentication related attacks. There's also been the enhancement of third-party automotive mobile apps, and this is what I'll get into more later when I had addressed Fleet API specifically. We've seen like Smart as a company that uses smart buses and whatever it may be, or Uber now is, there's talks about them doing more of these this taxi service too. Is that there's a lot of API enhancement on the back end, and so a lot of these apps often require information like the driver's PII and sensitive vehicle data, and this really appeals to even more bad actors. We talk about EV charging networks and infrastructures. There's been a big growth in the EV landscape, since it's been even more for potential for attackers, to access charging ports, and prompting more cybersecurity measures is a lot crucial here. Fleet management. A lot of companies that are operating this just from a cybersecurity standpoint, connected fleet infrastructures, create multiple attack vectors for attackers that could basically impact multiple fleet vehicles simultaneously. So, there's a lot of insurance models that are coming into place now to ensure that these companies are more secured, and we're putting more things in place. Um, and now, when we talk about smart mobility APIs, the number of automotive API attacks actually grew by 380% in 2022. So this is really just highlighting the increased amount of risks that are associated with APIs as their use continues to rise with different companies and new technologies that are coming into place. So no, I'm a very big statistical person. This is why I'm taking just some time to talk about the API standpoint of this. So I guess from this part of it, in 2022, we've seen that the distribution of automotive cyber attacks worldwide, it revealed that a predominant trend towards remote attacks. And this was actually accounted for a significant share of 97%. And so this shift actually indicates a towards cyber criminals that are exploiting vulnerabilities in connected vehicles. We've seen a big target on infrastructures and edge and IoT devices within vehicles, just because of their vulnerabilities, significantly damaging businesses and consumers. The automotive industry, with its increasing connectivity, is particularly more susceptible right now because of all of this. Now, how does this really come down to the common attack types, right? We've seen ransomware, data breaches, and control system breaches. Now, these attacks can actually disrupt operations, compromise safety, and really lead to significant financial losses at the end of the day. Now, safety and security, right? Those are two different things, but they really share something in common, right? Safety is the protection against technical failures, while security is the prevention of malicious manipulation. So, really, safety and security in the automotive cybersecurity are very complementary. While safety really measures the protection against technical failures to ensure the physical safety of passengers, security measures protect against cyber threats to safeguard data and prevent malicious manipulation of vehicle systems. And so together, putting these hand in hand, these measures ensure that vehicles are safe, secure, and reliable. And this is where Fleet API or just APIs in general come into place too, because they have a huge impact on safety for a vehicle, as security and safety do have a hand-in-hand relationship. So to move on here, we see that Waymo, GM, Cruise, they're all just in the automotive or at least the autonomous space. We've also seen Motional being another individual too. Zoox. There are a lot of companies out there today that are in the AV industry. And so these are all, operating driverless vehicles on public roads. And, although there's limited in their scope, a lot of these autonomous vehicles, represent a particular challenge for cybersecurity experts. And that those challenges are, things that we're taking in place and taking more effort on, and that's AI and machine learning. And this is where we talk about complex systems and real-time security, because it's really difficult to detect and react to cyber attacks in real time. And that's the truth in any automotive sector, if it's autonomous or connected vehicles and whatever. But it's really important to take the life cycle considerations in all of this, because they have to be taken into account right from the concept phase onwards. It must be really monitored across entire product life cycle. There's special attention that has to be really but put on, to be paid to managing software updates, also in accordance to UN regulation number 156. So considerations during the concept phase also affect the operation and the maintenance stage. So to move on here a little more, from API security in the AV area, APIs in autonomous vehicle handle sensitive data, and this is what I've talked about too. Is that this includes real-time location, there's sensor data, user information, and it makes it really crucial to ensure that this data is transmitted securely and remains unaltered. APIs enable this real-time data exchange between various components of the vehicle. We talk about sensors, cameras, LiDAR, as well as just the central processing units, right? These are all facilitating communication with external services like mapping, traffic information, and the weather updates. These also allow the integration of third-party services and applications. And so this will also come into place with enhancement of functionalities like navigation, ride sharing is a big one, fleet management. And so the interconnectivity of AVs and the smart city infrastructure for better traffic management and road safety is key here, right? APIs here also provides interfaces for remote control and management of AVs. This includes software updates, diagnostics, and maintenance, and enable cloud-based control centers to really monitor and manage the fleets of AVs. And this improves the operational efficiency and safety. To protect against cyber threats, it is essential to secure APIs, ensuring the safety and integrity of the AV systems, and to implement security protocols and measures, such as authentication, encryption, as well as anomaly detection. Now, to talk more about MayMobility standpoint, let's talk about where API security fits here. So believe it or not, a lot of companies, not just MayMobility, there's a lot of autonomous vehicles startups and companies out there. They actually publicly go ahead and put their public-facing documentation for Fleet API. So you can actually, if you go on Google or whatever it may be, you can actually Google search MayMobility's public documentation on their Fleet API. And you'll find all that documentation out there because it's publicly facing. And so just from a MayMobility standpoint, or just in general, data privacy and security, this when it comes down to Fleet API, Fleet API handles sensitive data. We talk about real-time location, telemetry data, sensor data, and user information. And so ensuring the security and integrity of data is really important. So MayMobility's API implements strong encryption and secure transmission protocols to protect data from unauthorized access and tampering. And so authentication mechanisms are also in place to verify the identity of devices and users accessing the system, and just further enhancing security. We talk about data communication too, because API enables the real-time data exchange between various components of the autonomous vehicles. This is just across the sector overall. Sensors, cameras, lidar, and just the central processing units. There's a lot of decision-making processes that take in place, during especially an autonomous vehicle. That is where this also comes into place. And so the API also facilitates the interaction with external services like mapping, the traffic updates, the weather information, and these are all going to be crucial, especially for navigation, operational efficiency. And lastly, we talk about control management too. APIs, provide interfaces for remote control and management of the AVs. This includes software updates, diagnostics, and maintenance. And so this capability is really important for ensuring that the vehicles are operating with the latest software, and that any issues can be quickly identified and resolved. And so cloud-based control centers can monitor and manage fleets of AVs, and this actually improves operational efficiency and safety at the end of the day. So again, make sure to go ahead and just take a look at the public-facing documentation that's actually out there. Take a look at other companies too. This will definitely enhance just the knowledge standpoint of where Fleet API stands into different sectors of the autonomous vehicle sector overall. So I want to take a moment too here to talk about the engine control unit. So the ECU is a critical component in modern vehicles. This is responsible for controlling the engine's operation based on input from various sensors. However, now the ECU is actually vulnerable to cyber attacks. These can have some serious implications for vehicle safety and security. Some vulnerabilities associated with the ECU are, we talk about unauthorized access. So like if hackers actually gain access to the ECU, they can manipulate engine performance, leading to potential safety hazards or even unauthorized access to vehicle functions. Hard-coded credentials too. Many ECUs use hard-coded credentials. These can be exploited by attackers to basically gain access or easy access to the system. There's internet-enabled administrative interfaces too. So an internet-enabled administrative interface can also be exploited here too by attackers. So they have the ability to manipulate the ECU, potentially compromising the vehicle's operation, and also the onboard diagnostics port. And so this is actually used for vehicle diagnostics and programming. But there's also been unauthorized access through this port that can actually allow attackers to tamper the vehicle software, inject malicious code, or even extract sensitive information. And so it is really essential to secure the OBD port to prevent a lot of these attacks. So autonomous vehicles really rely on the global positioning systems, which is GPS, for especially accurate location tracking and route navigation. However, there's been this break between when it comes down to the vulnerabilities that are being tracked. It can also be exploited by malicious entities, and so this actually poses a big significant safety threat. Um, just a few months ago, researchers actually, I believe from Duke University, identified vulnerabilities in automotive radar systems. And so these flaws could actually mislead systems about the presence and movement of vehicles. And so that this poses a big significant safety risk. And so according to the researchers, could actually be exploited without any knowledge of the radar settings. We've seen a lot of GPS-based attacks, especially from the API standpoint. They've been jamming, spoofing as well. We've seen meccaning too, and a lot of this can lead to inaccurate location information and post safety risks. There's been actually replay attacks recently too, where attackers record legitimate GPA signals and replay them to deceive receivers. And so this could actually be used to confuse them in the navigation system and cause confusion, especially in autonomous vehicles that lead to potential accidents. Um, to move on here, from just an AV LiDAR standpoint, autonomous vehicles really rely on the sensor systems for navigation and decision making. With the GPS playing a crucial role in providing precise geolocation and temporal data, a lot of these systems are not just immune to security breaches. So security risks in the AV sensor systems, there's been a lot more from just the security breaches targeting AV sensor systems, but this can actually compromise vehicle safety and just the passengers itself. There's been compromised sensor systems that could lead to a distorted understanding of the environment, and this really increases the risk of accidents. There've also been a lot of proposed countermeasures for this. There's been a risk management approach to really find the mitigating these vulnerabilities and to really address the potential cybersecurity threats and ensure the successful integration of AVs into future transport systems as well. So infotainment systems in modern vehicles are increasingly sophisticated, right? And this has been offered connectivity features such as Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and just cellular connections. Um, and there's just been an increase, a lot of from a vulnerability standpoint, on how this all operates at the end of the day.
Hey, Hemant, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Dan.
I just see you got a few more slides. We got about 4 more minutes here, so just quick heads up.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much. So to move on here, I do want to give a little fast paced here. Into the API security risks. Just because, EV connectors, we've talked about this a little bit in the beginning. There have been user terminals and internet connections, and integrating internet connections and modern EV charging stations brings convenience and just advanced service operators. And so it's really essential to acknowledge the association between security risks that arise from this connectivity, as well as the breaching of these EVCESs across the nation, across the world. There've been a number of CVEs right now from 2019 to 2022. There were 24 recorded CVEs in the automotive sector. In the following year, in 2020, this number actually increased to 33. There have been, Black Basta being a really big cybersecurity threat actor, as it's been a criminal enterprise that really first emerged in early of 2022. And we also talk about Cactus as well. This is a big ransomware group that is focused on the financial gains. Recently claimed responsibility for a cyber attack on a OEM. And we also seen Lockbit ransomware. It's a big group that's been selling across multiple users of software and access to the ransomware program. So there's been a big rise of this too. And to wrap it up here, just mitigation strategies, fuzz testing is really important. It's a dynamic software testing technique used to identify vulnerabilities, static application security testing, and also API security scanning. Dan has done an incredible job in putting this program together where you can actually go ahead and scan for your APIs for a lot of this. And I guess from a governance standpoint, most importantly, prioritize educating your developers by providing mandatory training on the OWASP top 10 APIs every year. Each year, or at least every few years in the short amount of time. OWASP releases a report that really highlights the most critical security risks, making essential to really ensure secure coding practices are constantly implemented. With that being said,